hammer, finger. Okay. Come on, you don't think I'm crazy enough to do that. But if I did hit my finger with that hammer, what would happen? It would swell, it would get hot, it would get red, and boy, would it ever hurt. It would be inflamed. Well, inflammation is the body's reaction to an injury. Why the swelling? Because blood rushes to the scene, bringing white blood cells to gobble up the injured cells. There are antibodies that also come in case there's an infection. And of course, it doesn't take all that long for the situation to resolve itself, and the finger heals. Unfortunately, it doesn't always happen so smoothly. Sometimes there is chronic inflammation, and that's a problem. When does that happen? When the body perceives there to be some injury that it can't quite handle, but it keeps trying. For example, when there are deposits in the coronary arteries, that would be a reason for the body to try to get rid of those deposits, but it's not easy to do that, so it keeps attacking those deposits with the white blood cells. And there's constant inflammation, and those white blood cells then release all kinds of chemicals that make the situation worse, the cytokines, the so-called pro-inflammatory substances. And that chronic inflammation is linked to all kinds of diseases. We do not want chronic inflammation. Now, sometimes the body just makes a mistake, and it starts to attack its own tissues. That's what happens in the case of diabetes, or in case of multiple sclerosis, or celiac disease, the so-called autoimmune diseases. And sometimes the body makes a mistake with food, and it believes that food is somehow the enemy, or at least certain components of food, and tries to attack that, and that also can cause chronic inflammation. How do we know when inflammation is underway? There are markers. Some of these you have heard of. There's the sedimentation rate. There's a specific protein called the C-reactive protein, or CRP. There's interleukin, there's fibrinogen, and these can be determined by blood tests. So based on such tests, researchers have developed a table of inflammatory foods, and which ones cause inflammation and which ones don't cause inflammation. And we're not really surprised to find out which are the good ones and which are the bad ones. It is the stuff that we're being told not to eat all the time anyway, all the fast food, whereas the green stuff, the fruits and vegetables, the Mediterranean diet, that is what we should be focusing on. So when it comes to inflammation and diet, we are learning quite a bit about that. We know, unfortunately, that the kind of foods that we like, and of course that's the pizzas and that's the processed meats, those are the ones that will raise those inflammatory markers in the blood. And that, of course, is potentially a problem. Whereas on the other side, we have things like the citrus fruits, we have other fruits like the tomato, and my favorite, the berries. These are all anti-inflammatory. And I like to top my berries with some pitted sour cherries. We actually have some scientific evidence that sour cherries are very anti-inflammatory. And of course, I don't want to overplay that. They're not drugs. But there are a lot of people who suffer from arthritis who say that when they increase the sour cherry intake of their diet, they feel better. Is it the placebo effect? Is it real? I don't really know, but it does taste good. So I like to start my day with some blueberries, topped off with some sour cherries. Whether they're really anti-inflammatory or not, you know what? They do taste good. Just one word of warning here. When you buy the sour cherries, make sure you buy the pitted ones. I learned about that the hard way.